My boss stood up in a boardroom full of executives, pointed at me, and said, "She failed at her job. I want her fired." What he didn't know was that every single lie he was about to say was already sitting in their inboxes. And by the time that meeting ended, only one of us was unemployed. If you've ever had a boss who underestimated you, disrespected you, or tried to break you just because they could, you're going to love this one. Hit that like button, subscribe for more real revenge stories, and settle in, because this is one of the most satisfying workplace karma stories you'll hear today. I used to believe that if you worked hard, kept your head down, and stayed professional, you'd be rewarded. Turns out, sometimes all that does is make you a target. A few years ago, I worked at a retail company. Nothing glamorous, but it was stable. I'd been there almost 2 years, built trust, learned the systems, earned respect. I was good at my job. So good, in fact, that when I decided to resign for personal reasons and handed in my notice, that's when he showed up, the new manager. Mid-50s, almost 60. The kind of man who thought authority made him charming and age gave him permission. On my second interaction with him, I noticed it. The looks that lasted a second too long, the comments that were almost compliments but not quite. At first, I brushed it off, might dealt with worse, but then he tried harder. Little jokes, personal questions, that uncomfortable leaning in too close energy. And then he found out I had a boyfriend. That's when everything changed. The charm vanished overnight. What replaced it was pure hostility. Suddenly, I wasn't promising, I wasn't talented, I was lazy, uncooperative, unprofessional. And the hate campaign began. But here's the part that still makes me laugh. Before he even joined the company, he was the one who stopped me from resigning. During my notice period, he called me into his office and said, "We don't want to lose you. I'm offering you a retail manager position. More pay, better title, less hours, great experience." I accepted. Big mistake for him, because once his ego got bruised, he decided to punish me. According to him, real work didn't involve sitting at a desk. Never mind that my job required creating weekly schedules, handling customer complaints, writing retail improvement proposals, coordinating staff and logistics. To him, if I wasn't physically walking around, I wasn't working. So every time he saw me at my desk, typing, focused, he'd snap. "What are you doing? Why are you sitting again? Do you think this is an office job?" The tone wasn't professional, it was personal. And then he piled it on. Without paperwork, without discussion, he unofficially added quality control checker to my role. 2 completely opposite jobs. One required constant movement and inspections, the other required focus, planning, and desk work. It was impossible to do both properly, and he knew that. I felt trapped. Every day felt like walking on glass. No matter what I did, it was wrong. If I did paperwork, I was lazy. If I did inspections, I was neglecting management. My performance started to suffer, not because I wasn't capable, but because I was being sabotaged. That's when something inside me shifted. I stopped trying to please him, and I started playing it smart. I adjusted my routine. I did all paperwork during my breaks. Lunch breaks, early mornings, late evenings. I sent him schedules, proposals, updates, every single one by email. And here's the key part. I CC'd the company owner, the director, upper management, every time. Then, during working hours, I stayed on my feet. Quality checks, inspections. I made sure he always saw me doing what he claimed mattered. I knew something important. He never read emails, barely skimmed messages. So I waited. And sure enough, the trap closed itself. Instead of yelling at me one day like usual, he did something worse. He scheduled a meeting with the owner, the director, senior leadership. I walked into that room already knowing what was coming. He didn't even look at me. He stood up, cleared his throat, and said, "She has failed her duties as a retail manager. She neglects responsibilities. I believe termination is necessary." The room went silent. I felt heat rise up my neck, but I didn't interrupt. Then the owner spoke. "Can you explain exactly what she failed to do?" That's when I opened my mouth. Calm, professional. "I'd like to clarify something," I said. Then I turned to the screen and pulled up the emails. Dates, attachments, schedules, proposals, all sent on time, all approved or ignored, all CC'd to everyone in that room. I explained how I was assigned two conflicting roles, how I adjusted to meet expectations, how every task was documented. And finally, I said, I followed every instruction given to me. If there was a failure, it was in communication. The director started scrolling through his inbox, then the owner. This silence was different, heavy, uncomfortable. My boss's face went pale. He tried to interrupt, stumbled over his words. I didn't. The owner cut him off. "You didn't read the emails, did you?" That was it. The meeting ended shortly after. I was asked to step outside. 10 minutes later, I was called back in. They apologized, gave me a raise, and informed me that my manager was no longer with the company. He wouldn't even look at me as he walked out. A few months later, I left too, for a better opportunity. But that moment stayed with me. Watching the man who tried to break me lose everything because of his own arrogance, I didn't yell, I didn't insult him, I didn't expose him emotionally. I just let the truth speak, and it was louder than anything he ever said to me. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet, documented, professional, and absolutely devastating. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button. Comment below, have you ever had a boss like this? And don't forget to subscribe for more real, satisfying revenge stories, because karma always collects, eventually.